What is good, Foundation Nation? Welcome to Field Work Tips and Tricks. Today we're basically out in the field. We're gonna be doing some field work and I'm gonna be walking you through kind of different drills and stuff like that I've always really enjoyed. I used to do field work a lot more than I do now, but one thing that I've noticed is like when people are first getting into the game, everyone tends to tell people you need to go out in the field, learn your disc, do field work, blah, blah, blah. But if you just come out here with no goal in mind and you're just gonna kind of chuck your discs, you're better off just playing around at that point, because you're gonna come out here, kind of aimlessly throw your disc and not really have good like targets or aim, like things you're working on or anything like that. And it almost will kind of end up being a waste of your time. First tip is be intentional with your field work. It'd be better to come out and spend 20 minutes of dedicated work on one part of your game than to come out here and spend 2 hours just chucking your bag and not paying attention to kind of what's going on and you're just throwing just to throw. So be intentional with your field work. Come out with a goal in mind, like I want to learn how to throw my mid-ranges flat. I want to learn what my mid-ranges do on this angle or something like that. The second thing I think field work is great for, and this one I'll actually kind of show you a little bit of a drill for, is learning how to use your discs in situations you might not typically use them. So what I always like to do, I actually brought Trevor's bag out here today instead of my bag because I thought that would be perfect for situations like this where you're trying to learn new discs, because if I threw my bag, I've done this before with them. I know what each disc reacts to different angles. Trevor's bag, I have no clue what these discs are gonna do. So the first thing I like to do is I like to throw my entire bag or the group of discs I'm trying to learn on every angle. So I like to hit them on Hyzer, I like to hit them flat, and I like to hit them on Hyzer, because there's some discs, for instance, like we have Trevor's fuse here. I know this is an understable mid-range, so if I was just coming out here and just throwing, I'd probably mostly hit this on Hyzer or flat, and I would never think to throw it on Hyzer, because in a round I probably wouldn't throw this on Hyzer. And the same thing goes for the Justice. I'd probably mainly throw it flat and throw it on Hyzer, and I probably would never think to throw it on Hyzer. But coming out here with the intention of learning what these discs do, I might figure out that, hey, this fuse on Hyzer actually wants to pan out a lot more. I might be able to use that for a specific thing. Or if I throw this fuse on a lot of Hyzer, it never fully flips up. It's actually gonna be a really good pushing Hyzer. Stuff like that, coming out here, you might start to notice some overlaps in your bag or things that you didn't know a disc was good for, but they're actually really good for. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do, is I've picked out 9 discs out of Trevor's bag, 3 mids, 3 fairways, and 3 distance drivers. I'm just gonna kind of throw them on Hyzer, throw them flat, throw them on Hyzer, kind of learn what they do before I go into some other drills. So we're gonna start with the mids. Start off with this fuse here. I'm gonna start everything just on Hyzer. And my goal here, I'm not having a specific aim point, anything like that. I'm literally just trying to throw them all on about the same amount of Hyzer and just see how each disc reacts differently. That'll kind of give me a good tell of what these discs will do. Same thing, flat, I'm gonna throw them as flat as I can, and Hyzer, try to hit the same Hyzer angle, and just kind of learn what they do. Got a little nose up, more understable than I thought. I mean, I knew what that was gonna do. A Justice is a Justice is a Justice. The Trust is one I'm very interested in, because I haven't thrown this Royal Line Doll. Trevor's been loving it. I wanna see what it's gonna do. Has a lot of glide. Okay, next we're gonna go into the fairways. I believe this is his Maverick. Got a Maverick, I think this is a Criminal, and a River. Same thing, just a little bit of Hyzer. Okay. Wow, okay, a Criminal is a lot more overstable than I thought. River I've never thrown, I've always wanted to. Yeah. Final 3 I'm gonna just throw. Got an Enforcer, a Sergeant, and this Grace. Try to hit them all a little bit harder. Okay, I actually had a pretty good little flip up to it. Rode relatively straight on that Hyzer. See, for instance, this was my bag. Those 2 discs on Hyzer flew the exact same. So in my head, if this is my bag, I'm making a note of that. And then I'm watching how they throw on Hyzer, how they throw flat on Hyzer and how they throw flat. And I'm seeing, like, is that a potential where I'm carrying 2 molds that I could carry 1 and just have like a backup of whichever one I like more, and see if one does a certain thing better. So like those both on Hyzer did the exact same thing, went about the exact same amount of distance. So it'll be interesting on Hyzer and flat if there's something where one excels at more than the other, and I can start learning my bag that way. Whereas in a round, you know, I might only think of my grace, like be like, oh, this disc I threw flat one time, I did a full flex shot. That's what that disc does. And oh, my sergeant I always throw on Hyzer flip lines. And so then whenever I get to that line, I always throw that disc, so I never realize that they both can do the same thing, and I can minimalize my bag. If you don't get out in the field work, or when you do, you're just throwing how you know the disc, you'll never learn things like that. Final one, the enforcer. That disc is fast. All right, so that's Hyzer. I'm gonna walk out there, throw them back just flat, and then, you know, once I've thrown them flat, I'll probably throw them on Hyzer off camera, because this video isn't as much about what I can do in the field as much as it is teaching you different drills. So I'll throw them back flat so you can see that. And then I'll walk you through kind of the next drill once I'm comfortable with these discs. All right, so now, like I said, I'm just throwing back flat. The only goal that's in my head as far as results wise is just my release point. I'd like to see each disc come out in about the same point. So for right now, I'm just kind of picking a tree out in the distance. I'm trying to just throw it flat at that tree. Main reason for that is A, it gives me a consistent like visual of how much a disc is turning off the line or fading. And B, when I walk up to the discs, I can kind of see the spread of where they all landed, which ones are traveling farther, which ones are falling shorter, and then how far off that line they ended up. There's gonna be mistakes, obviously, that's why we're out here in the field working. But when I can throw them flat and I'm like, okay, I know I hit these 3 right. Wow, my river is going just as far as my distance driver. Those are notes that you can keep in your head and kind of figure all that out. Starting off with the trust again, throwing flat. That was a little bit of a pull, but it did come out flat. So the truss is like, I feel like it's like your typical straight to overstable mid. I feel pretty comfortable with that already. The fuse, I'm interested to see how it reacts flat. Made sure I gave that lots of height to see if it'd fight back. It doesn't really, just kind of pans. I grip locked the crap out of that, but a justice is a justice. Really overstable. That one won't take much to learn. All right, the river, I'm very interested to see how it reacts flat. See, stuff like that's good to know for me because I don't trust understable discs flat nearly ever, but the river has enough glide that it doesn't want to get down and cut. So what that tells me is most likely I'll be able to trust it on a high Hyzer without worrying about it getting to the ground and rolling out, which will allow for some really long sweeping Hyzers without much power. Kind of like if I had an overstable disc and wanted to achieve the same shot, I'd have to crank on it. The river I can probably hit a lot softer and have it achieve the same type of shot. It's so hot right now, holy cow. Maverick's just dead straight. Dead straight. All right, let's see this criminal. It's pretty overstable on Hyzer. See if it does the same flat. Yeah. Very overstable. All right, now I got the Grace. That disc is sick. Check out the Sergeant next. Pulled it up a little bit. And the Enforcer. Yanked over on it. That didn't tell me much. So that's gonna happen too sometimes when you're doing these drills. Again, you're in field work to work. So you're gonna make a mistake, might not learn it. You can either just accept it. The disc like the Enforcer, I know what it's gonna do. I know it's overstable. So if I mess up, I'm not too worried about it. If that was a disc that I'm really trying to learn, like the River for instance, what I would do is when I'm throwing Hyzers, I'd keep the River flat. So I can at least see it because I wanna hit it good, be able to understand what it's doing. Keeping mental notes like that is what will really help the field work excel your game, versus if you just kind of come out here and chuck, I don't remember what any of them do, I'm just throwing so I can tell people I did field work. That's when it's not hurting your game because you're throwing, but it's not helping your game as much as it could. So if you're gonna come out here, you're gonna dedicate the time, make sure you're keeping these mental notes and really paying attention to learning your disc and understanding why a disc is doing what it is and how that's gonna affect all the flights of that disc in start painting different scenarios where you can use the shot you just saw versus being like, I'm never throwing that disc flat ever, like that sucked. Maybe be like, hey, if I gave that a little more height, or if I hit that a little harder, I could see that working in this scenario. It's always better to try to figure out every type of scenario your disc could do. So then when you're scrambling or you're in weird shots, you're not looking at it like, I don't know what to do. You're like, oh, this is the exact shot I just threw in the field by accident. If I can replicate that, boom, now I can get closer to the basket. All right, so one of the keys with being intentional with your field work is the next part. You've learned your discs a little bit. You understand what they do on different lines. You understand what they're capable of. Now you want to be setting goals. So you want to be, by setting goals, I don't mean like I want to throw 550, because you're not going to go from, like for me, I'm not going to go from throwing 400 to 550 in one thing of field work. But I can set a goal like, I'm going to throw these discs and I'm going to keep throwing them until every single one of my mids lands within 25 feet of my bag, or whatever my comfort zone may be. So what I've done, and this is what I do a lot of times to warm up for tournaments, is I'll walk out in the field, lay my bag down, and then I come back and I'll have my mid-ranges set up. A little bit farther back, I have my fairways. Even farther back, I have my distance drivers. Not sure if you can see them, they're kind of laying in the grass. But it kind of is like 3 different sections. If I'm warming up for a tournament, I'm working all my shots, I'm doing what I'm comfortable with, I'm trying to be confident. If I'm doing field work like today, I'm doing the opposite. Because if I stood here, my most comfortable shot is just gonna be throwing wide hyzers, letting them crash into my bag. That's easy, I'm done. I just throw them, I'm there, don't need to work on it anymore, whatever. But I'm not in the field work, I'm not doing field work to look good out here, right? I'm doing field work so I can look good on the course. So what I wanna do here is the shots I'm not comfortable with. So what I actually ended up doing is I moved my mid-range station, all of my stations a little bit closer, because I'm the most comfortable personally with throwing shots hard. So what these shots are gonna make me do is take power off. And then the second thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to not throw any of these on hyzer for this station, or that station. So I'll kind of walk you through my thought process with that and what I'm gonna end up throwing. You want to fail in field work. You wanna be doing stuff that's pushing you outside your comfort zone to where you're not good at it. If you're only working on what you're good at, then you're always only gonna be good at those things. So it's important in field work to do stuff that makes you uncomfortable. You might get frustrated. That's when you're doing good field work. If you're out here and you feel like you're throwing the best you've ever thrown and you're just, I'm laying stuff on a dime, just hyzer after hyzer, I'm not getting better, because the reason I'm doing so good is because I can already do that thing. I'm out here to work on stuff I can't do. So for the fuse, for instance, I noticed when I threw it on anhyzer, it didn't cut all the way down. This is a shot I probably wouldn't normally throw in a round or in a tournament. So I'm gonna work on it here to see, is it something I can replicate? So I'm gonna just throw a little standstill anhyzer shot out to the right or out to the left, let it cruise into the right and see if I can get it close to the bag. And you'll see I didn't trust it. So I cranked it a little bit too much. I pulled it, I'm like 40 feet away. That's the type of stuff that you don't want in rounds, so you get it out here. So now I know, trust it, it's gonna keep going, swing it farther. That's the same thing I'm gonna do actually for this Justice. Put it on anhyzer again, because I have a really hard time flexing shots that I'm not throwing full power. So I'm gonna do the same thing I just did with that and try to throw it on anhyzer and let it flex in. 'Cause I think that's a really hard shot for me to predict. All right. Could have used a little more power, but flight-wise, I'm pretty happy with that. And that's the type of thing that I see the result, I'm like, that might actually be a pretty useful shot. I need to work on that, I need to work that out. So if I was actually doing field work and it wasn't just for a video, what I would do is I would throw all of my mids, not just a few of them, and each one I'd have a specific shot I'm working on with that mid. So then I'd come back to the station and just rep it out. I keep going with that Justice on a flex line, because the next time I'm gonna mess up, whatever, until I figure it out and get it dialed to where if I step up to this shot, I'm just as comfortable throwing that as I am throwing the pure hyzer. So now this one, the Trust, I'm gonna throw a standstill again. I'm gonna just throw it flat out to the left, out to the right a little bit and let it come into the left and just see kind of how that ends me up. Ends me up, does that even make sense? Okay, again, a little bit short. Line-wise though, I'm very happy with that. If I was repping through it, to be honest with you, I think I would start throwing that on Hyzer. Hyzer seems to be my weakest shot. But now, let's walk on back to the fairways. All right, fairways, I'm gonna just do what makes me uncomfortable with the disc in particular. So for this disc, there's a little bit of a Hyzer, or a little bit of a headwind, I mean. So that means I'm actually gonna throw this on Hyzer because this disc is pretty neutral. It's a pretty straight flyer. Throwing it on Hyzer into a headwind scares me. I would normally be disking up. I wouldn't do this shot, but I wanna see how it handles the headwind and see if I can't get it to flip up to flat and then still Hyzer out in a headwind, because that's a good information to know. Instead of just trusting a really overstable disc, this is the time to work through that and see what I can do with it. So see, like it didn't actually flip up that much. I didn't quite hit it hard enough again, but line-wise, it actually got me, it looks like I'm probably about circle's edge, 30 feet or so. But now I know, like, hey, if I'm in a situation with a light headwind, I don't have to be scared with the Maverick. I can trust it. So I'd throw that again a few more times, see if the wind changes, whatever. This disc, I'm gonna treat like the Justice. Throw it on Hyzer and try to get it to flex. Again, that's like my worst shot. So we'll see if I can do it. Again, I didn't really trust it. I still wanted to pull it over, but that landed like on top of my Justice. So ended up being okay. They're getting back, getting centered. This final one with the river, my goal is to throw it straight at the bag. So I think that's gonna mean throw it on a little bit of Hyzer and watch it flip up. Shots like this require you just to commit hard to the shot you're going to and let the disc kind of do its work and hopefully just stay on a frozen rope to the bag. Watch me pull that over. And the disc reacted differently than I kind of expected, so ended up pretty good. Put on back to the distance drivers, do the same type of thing. All right, for these, I'm honestly gonna throw them all flat. With a distance driver, that's the shot I struggle with the most, and then I'm just gonna adjust my line based on what I think the disc is gonna do. So I would imagine I'm like 300 some out, so I don't have to hit this hard for a distance driver, so I would expect them to all be relatively overstable. It's just how far right do I release the disc to get it back over to the bag. Now, as you'll quickly notice, that was a lot farther right than you would ever want to be. Field work's supposed to be ugly. Usually I would walk away from field work every time I did it, ticked off, leaving the field because I'd get so frustrated. But then the next time I came to the field, those shots are a little bit easier. And then eventually I was like, holy cow, that shot that was impossible for me 2 months ago, I'm now hitting every time. That's the goal of field work. If you're not messing up, you're not learning. At least that's what I tell myself. Hunter, you just did that. See, it's like some real-time learning and field work going down here. Because now what this is telling me, mids and fairways, all in all, pretty comfortable. So if I was out here and this is by myself, this next rep, I would just walk up to my bag, I'd grab all my distance drivers and I'd be coming right back here. I'd be grinding it out because that's what I need to work on today. We're gonna try with the Enforcer again, try to throw it flat, tell myself not to swing it as far. I wanna miss left if I miss on this one. And guess what I did? Missed right. So hopefully you kind of understand the goal and the mindset of this. It's putting yourself in situations where you're not comfortable and then repping those situations out so that you get comfortable. Another drill with a similar idea, especially if you're on a soccer field or something that has painted lines. This is also something I'll do if I was playing a tournament that had a lot of OB coming up. Instead of just aiming at my bag, I would make more arbitrary landing zones. So I would basically use the lines or bring cones out. So it's a little bit harder to see, a little bit harder to judge, and my discs have to land like left side of the cones past this point. So I'd like set up an L and I gotta be past this left. So then what that mimics is basically like a USDGC type situation. We used to play Dean's Cup there for collegiate nationals or for college disc golf. And those OB lines, sometimes from the tee, you know where they are, but you can't quite see them. And so you have to trust your instincts and trust yourself. There's lots of other courses that have just like flagged OB and stuff like that, Ledgestone when I played that tournament. And so what I would do is the weeks leading up to it, I'd get in the field, line up my landing zone with cones, and then do the same type of thing I just did. Start close with putters, a little bit farther away with mids, fairways, distance drivers, throw shots I wasn't quite comfortable with, and my goal is just land them safe. Land them safe. And then what you can also do is play like an elimination game, and so whatever disc you're landing safe and you're comfortable with, you leave it out there, and you just keep bringing back the ones that aren't landing safe. and rep them out until they're all landing safe. And then I'm gonna show you one more final drill that you can use. A lot of times we're doing field work on like soccer fields or lacrosse fields or something like that. So there's net spot nearby, and nets are really useful for disc golf to be able to work different things. So I'm gonna go grab one of the nets and show you one final drill or idea that you can kind of work into your field work routine. All right, so the final thing you can kind of focus on, just to kind of recap, the first thing with being intentional with your field work is learning your bag, learning your disc on all kinds of different angles. The second thing is learning how your discs react and how to manipulate them, so manipulating the flight to get the results you want. And the third thing is working on your form, focusing on your form. So this, different drills you can do out here. The main one I'm gonna teach right now is just, you get a lacrosse net, you get some type of net. I don't really have a name for this drill, but you basically are just working on your timing. This is something that I always screw up, always mess up. It's just my release point timing and hitting gaps. And so if that's something you're struggling with, this is a great thing. You get a net, you start as close as you know, I'm not gonna miss that. This is a bit ambitious, I'm like 20 feet away. I'm not that confident I'm not gonna miss it, but this is where we're starting. You rep out a few, feeling good, take a few steps back. Rep out a few, hitting the net, feeling good, a few steps back until you get uncomfortable and you keep working on it like that. So this is where like your discs you're using, stuff like that, doesn't really matter unless there's specific discs you struggle with. It's more so just focusing on your form. But how you kind of come up with these drills is if you're out on a course and you find a scenario where maybe it's like a patent pending shot where you have to like straddle out and you're uncomfortable throwing it, you figure out like, why was I uncomfortable throwing that shot? Oh, throwing patent pending on Hyzer, I'm really not comfortable with. So what you would do is come out to a field, set up like some type of obstacle. You could even use a net, use your bag or something, and set up a scenario where you have to lean out and you have to throw that shot to get comfortable with it. So whatever's making you uncomfortable on the course, figure out a way to replicate that in the field. So for me, hitting the gap. So what I'm gonna do here is start taking discs, throwing, making sure I'm hitting the gap. Once I'm comfortable with whatever spot, I'll move back 5 feet. Once I'm comfortable with that spot, move back 5 feet until eventually I'm not comfortable anymore. So I'm really not focused on anything except for just getting through this net. Just like on a course, getting through a gap. For the sake of the video, I'm gonna go ahead and move back 5 or 10 feet. So now the gap looks a little smaller from back here. Do the same thing though. So far, so good. All right, so I kept working. Now I'm getting to where I'm uncomfortable. I feel like I'm gonna miss the gap. Maybe not more often than not, but pretty frequently. And so this is where I would kind of rep it out. So I would stand here, just throw my whole bag at this net and keep working, because that'd be like hitting a gap, 100 feet down the fairway or something like that, and focusing on my timing. If my timing's good, I'm gonna hit the net. If timing's bad, I'm not. Like that. Also, side part of this drill comes with punishments, because if you hit the net and you're doing good, you're rewarded with all your discs being in one spot. You miss the net, now you gotta go find them. Sorry, Trevor. So see, oh, don't hit that one. Oh, sorry. Oh, I feel bad because it's not my bag. But hopefully you understand what I'm saying. Field work is not meant to be pretty. It's not meant to look good. You're not meant to come out here and just like flex on everyone because you can throw farther than them. Because then all you're ever gonna be able to do is throw far. You gotta get out here and you gotta work what you're not good at. Field work is the best thing you can do for your game, but it can also be the most frustrating thing if you're doing it right, because you're gonna be pushing yourself, you're gonna be getting outside your comfort zone and looking for ways that you can improve and working on those things. So hopefully you understand what I'm coming from with field work, and hopefully understand what you can imply or implement into your game, implement into your field work. But always when you're playing a course, be on the lookout for what are you struggling with? What is it that if you could fix this, it could take 5, 10 strokes off your game? Be looking at that during the round. Maybe it's just putting. Maybe instead of field working, you just get on the putting green and putt. Maybe it is hitting the gap. Maybe it's a forehand. Whatever it is, take that and then come out to the field work and intentionally work on that thing. Like I said, it's much better to get out here and intentionally work on what you're bad at for 20, 30, 40 minutes than it is to get out here and just chuck your bag back and forth for 2 hours with no goal in mind. That's, if you're out here intentionally working on something you're bad at, you're gonna see drastic improvements a lot faster than if you're just out here having a good time and saying you're doing field work so that you can brag to everyone that you're doing field work. So hopefully this video made sense. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you want to check out any of the discs in this video or anything like that, head over to foundationdisc.com. We got plenty of restocks happening all the time. Also be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff to keep up to date with our different releases, drops, and other information that you might need. And other than that, we'll see you in the next one.